Hello wolves! I don't know why, but I put perfume on myself getting ready for this video. It's not like you're gonna be able to smell me or whatever, and I'm spending the day at home, so yeah. So today I wanted to recommend you some standalone books, because this is the end of the year, so maybe you don't have time to get involved in any kind of series, and because sometimes I feel sick reading series. Don't get me wrong, I love series, I love reading, but sometimes I just want a good book that I know that at the end, when I'm gonna flip the last page, it's gonna be over, because sometimes I need an end at the end of a book. I'm not gonna give you how many stars I gave them, but know that overall they all had 4 or 5 stars. I think that 1 or 2 had only 3 stars, which is still good, but I wanted to talk about them. As usual, I'm just gonna link all the books down below, so the GoodReads pages, so you can just check them out and make your own opinion of them. So the first book is a book I've read really recently, and this is Sadie by Courtney. So yeah. This is basically the story of Sadie looking for her sister's killer. So you have 2 point of views in that book. So you have Sadie's point of view and everyone else through a podcast. It was so well done. A lot of people talked about that book, a lot of people love that book. It's about heavy subjects, parent neglect, rape, etc, etc. There is nothing graphic if you're scared of that. I really recommend it. It's quite short, to be honest, so it's very enjoyable, it's very easy to read. If you're not sure if you want to pick this book up, you could also try the audiobook. Apparently this is an amazing audiobook because it has a full cast of characters. So Sadie. Then I have 2 books written by the same author. So you have Norse Mythology and The Graveyard Book. Yeah, Neil Gaiman, like... This is the first book ever I've read by Neil Gaiman. This is Norse mythology retelling. So this is basically a retelling of Norse mythology. But this is done in such a modern way that I really enjoyed it. And what I really loved about that book, and every book should have that, at the end you have like a glossary with all the characters, and you have the relations with other characters. Because let's be honest, any kind of mythology, there are so many people, so many gods or whatever, it's sometimes really complicated to keep track of them. So I thought this book was so well done. So yeah, and gorgeous. And then you have The Graveyard Book. So this is a story of Nobody Owens, who was raised by ghosts in a cemetery. So it's not that dark actually, and if you want, this is just a lot of little stories about him learning something. So let's say learning not to talk to strangers, learning not to cross the road without looking right and left, you know what I mean, this kind of stuff. And it was really cute, really enjoyable. It's short, and this is a standalone, so yeah. The next book is The Lost Boy by Christina. This is a retelling of Peter Pan, the darkest retelling I've ever read. I'm really a fan of her writing style and her imagination, so I'll probably read all of her other books because yeah, it was done good. This is Peter Pan, not a enjoyable kid. He's so dark, he's all about blood stuff, etc. So yeah, the twist was kind of, yeah, I just want to say it was super dark, super dark, super dark. Peter Pan in that book was a mix of everything that's bad in kids in general. You know, when you're jealous, when you want your friends only to be your friends, you know, when it's playtime and you have to play whatever the rules are or whatever. So it was so good. I read it like in no time. I really enjoyed it, but this is a dark retelling, so you know, my kind of stuff. Then The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. That's a classic, everyone should read that book, that's what I believe. And this is super short, this is super cute, so yeah, this is also a standalone. And you have like illustration inside. Yeah, obviously I'm gonna show you the part when there is no illustration. And then here, I really love that book. I think I've read that book like 1,000 times, but it's really good. I have another retelling to recommend you, and this is Brightly Burning by Alexa Donne. So this is a Jane Eyre retelling. Do you say Eyre? Jane Eyre. And this is basically Jane Eyre in space. I love the story so much. I loved every single character in that book, and I love that it was sci-fi because we don't read so many sci-fi retellings. So I really enjoyed it, and the cover is not like my kind of thing, but it's gorgeous at the same time, if that makes any sense. I'm crazy, I know, so sorry. This is a story of different people who are living on different ships in the space. They had to leave Earth because something bad happened. You cannot live on Earth anymore, so Stella is gonna go to a new ship because she was actually looking for a new job. She's gonna end up in a ship that she doesn't know if it's haunted, but there is definitely something going on there that's wrong or whatever, and she's gonna meet like an actual family who's not really a family, and yeah, whatever. It was super interesting. There is a love story in there, but I really didn't mind it. Next one is the Book of M by Peng Shepherd. The cover is gorgeous. So one day an Indian guy is gonna lose his shadow, but he's not the only one, so people will start to see their shadow disappearing. And also this is not only the shadow disappearing, so people are gonna start to forget stuff, so how to eat, how to breathe, or do they know that person, etc, etc, and at the end they're gonna die. It's not that dark actually, it's just me giving you a bad synopsis of that book, but this is a sci-fi and fantasy book, so you have sci-fi and fantasy, which is super intriguing. I love the story. So the two main characters, they kind of escaped from the city. They hope they won't get touched by that disease or whatever, so they escape and they're living in the forest, in the woods, in the mountains, whatever. And one day one of the characters is gonna see her shadow disappear. So this is sad, this is wonderful, this is heartbreaking. Book of M. I think the next book, you've seen it everywhere because of the gorgeous cover, but this is The Wicked Thief by Shea Earnshaw. I'm still not sure how you pronounce her name. Shea Earnshaw, whatever. But the book naked is actually gorgeous. So yeah. This was the most atmospheric kind of book that I have read. This is basically the story of three sisters who got drowned 200 years ago, I think, because they were like accused of witcheries. Each year the Swan sisters are coming back and they want boys to drown. Everything is happening on an island, and this is wonderful, and I love that book, and I love the main characters, and I loved everything. I don't remember if I saw the twist coming or not, but I really enjoyed that book. I recommend it to everyone, but yeah, it's really good. Then another retelling that I really enjoyed. I think that I read so many retellings this year and my love for retellings keeps growing, but I've read To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. So this is a retelling of The Little Mermaid, except that The Little Mermaid is not just a nice mermaid, but this is a killer. But yeah, retelling of The Little Mermaid, but darker, I want to say, because sirens or mermaids are not like that good, you know? I really enjoyed that book. Then the next book I've read, I'm gonna put a picture over here, is The Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro. This was a beautiful story. This was a beautiful love story. This is about romance and I loved it, but this is at the same time so much more than just romance. It's about having a voice even if you think you don't have a voice, even if you think that your opinions don't matter. And this was just beautiful, beautiful. The next one is actually an audiobook I listened to. So this is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh my god, that book got me into science book because I've always been a nerd. I love science documentary, etc, etc, but I wasn't a fan of science books because I thought that if I wasn't in the field I wouldn't understand the vocabulary, etc, etc. And I listened to the audiobook, and it's actually Neil deGrasse Tyson who's making the audiobook, so he's talking and oh my god, I love his voice. His voice is so addictive and everything was even more interesting, and I loved it, I loved it, and I loved it, and you know what, I understood everything. So the next one is actually a book I've read and a book I've listened to, and this is The Martian by Andy Weir. And where do you say whatever. This is so funny. I think this is the funniest book I've ever read. So about a guy trying to survive on Mars, and you know what, it's not that easy, and I think that it's very humorous, etc. I laughed all the time, but it was actually his way of protecting himself. That was his way of keeping some kind of sanity, and yeah, I really loved it. Then another standalone that I would like you to read is The Last Days of Magic by Mark Tompkin. But be aware, I would say that this book is an adult book because there is a lot of sex scenes, very well described, etc. So maybe more adult-ish. I read it a long time ago, but I still remember everything that was happening inside. So you have different words, different races, you know, fairies, goblin, blah 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 and blah blah blah, and they all kind of want to survive, but sometimes they cannot survive if the other one doesn't die, etc, etc. It was such a good book. It was so interesting, so please check the link down below to see people's opinion and the synopsis of it, because I'm scared that if I try to explain it you won't understand and you won't want to read it because it's kind of complicated. So that's why adult, but I really enjoyed it. Then another retelling that I just finished like a few days ago, and I got it on NetGalley from Bloomsbury, so thank you so much. So this is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Camera, so a retelling of The Beauty and the Beast, and I've been talking about that book everywhere, so you know this was my favorite book of the year. You don't need more. Pick it up, it's coming out on January 29. Then there is another book that I read so many years ago, but at that point I really want to reread it. This is Go as Alice by Beatrice Sparks. So the author at the beginning published it. Oh, it's raining. I hope you're not gonna hear that. As anonymous as I was saying, and it's really heartbreaking because this is a private diary book about a girl who's gonna go through some prostitution, drugs, anorexia, etc. If you're wondering if this is graphic and explicit, yes it is. So trigger, warning, whatever, just be aware this is a beautiful book, but maybe not for everyone. Then you have Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. This is my favorite movie ever. Movie, not the book. The book is very good. It's really good, but it's not my favorite book ever. The movie is the best. This is a classic you probably have heard about 1000 times, but I really do recommend you to read that book one day if you have time, because this is quite huge. Then the last book I'm gonna recommend here is Beyond a Darknet Shore by Jessica Leake. I really enjoyed the Norse mythology kind of vibes in that book and other kind of mythology. I really enjoyed the characters, I really enjoyed the twist, I really enjoyed the plot. Something bothered me in that book, but this is such a good and enjoyable book. And yeah, her only hope is her greatest enemy. It's a bit of a cliche at some points because the main character is gonna have to become, let's say, a friend with the enemy in order to save her people, but it was really good. So, and this is a YA fantasy. I really recommend it. I had a fun time reading it, so yeah. So well, that's it, that's the end of the list, because we sometimes need standalones and not a new series, because yeah, because when you start a new series you want to finish it and it takes time, when there are sometimes very good standalones. So question for you, do you prefer series or standalones? Or do you read very often standalones or not? Or what book intrigued you? I would like to know. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to be a part of the pack. And as usual, talk to me in the comments and take care. Bye.